Well, here, this is Silas and myself, and Steve Cole, and we're just here to have a father and son chat, and we're going to let you in on it. Really, we just thought about the whole process of a transplant and donor side of it and such, that we just wanted to talk about a few things that we've talked about. Some things that we've shared with each other, some things we haven't, some things we haven't told anybody. Really no plan to what we're doing. We thought, well, maybe the Lord will be blessed and use this in somebody's life, or maybe even in ours. And so we'll let you listen in, and hopefully it'll be a benefit to everybody that way. You know, I think about when the Lord saved me when I was 15 years old, just on an old street here in Durand, Wisconsin, up on Goodrich Avenue, and late one night called upon the Lord, and life has been different ever since. And for you, it's just been a few years. But I was thinking about, when I was 15, here you were 15, and you found out you had a kidney disease. And really, both our lives were turned upside down when we were 15. Mine for the better, and yours maybe not so much. I don't know. Do you remember when you first found out you had a kidney disease?
I got dehydrated in a cross-country meet, and I passed out. And they took me to the doctor, and that is when the doctors told me that, this is a kidney disease.
I remember when you passed out on that race.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah, I had no idea it was anything like that. Honestly, at the time, I thought maybe it was drugs or something.
Might
You had a few issues with things going on back then, and it's, it's been a rough ride. But, as we think about just the whole kidney problem that way, and again, everybody has a lot of different problems. In fact, as we've been at Mayo Clinic over the last month or so, we've seen people with mega problems, and it seems like, not to minimize yours, but I say ours, that our problem is, it's kind of like everybody else's, and maybe better than some people's. We have some hope. But how did you, sometimes we talk about peace, and you've talked about peace in the midst of your kidney disease, but I want to differentiate between when, like, the first 5 years, as opposed to just in the last year. And how would you describe how you handled things from what you knew back at that time? Just knowing, because the kidney disease, obviously there's no cure for it, and this is why we're here. We're ready to have a transplant, and so.
Well, in 2013, I had 8 surgeries, and I was in the hospital for bleeding in my kidney, and my kidney was failing. And the whole time I was in there, I kind of just felt numb. And I think I mistaked the numbness I felt for some sort of peace. I didn't really feel anything. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel bitter. I just felt nothing. So I feel like that was some sort of peace to me, and I feel maybe the devil put that there to deceive me as a peace. But, I've gone through almost the same exact thing this year as I did in 2013. The only difference is I got saved, and the peace that God gave me was actual peace. And when, and it was worse this time. I had thoughts of death and not waking up, and I thought of everything that I was putting everybody else through. And so I felt everything, but I had peace, versus before I didn't feel anything, and I just felt numb. So
how would you describe that kind of peace that you had with just kind of just dealing with what's going on? And there's a lot of people that are going through a lot of trials and so forth, and you and I are kind of the same way that way. When something happens, just like, well, it's coming our way, and so we just got to deal with it. And I don't think that's a wrong way, but it's just something that's kind of our personality. So would you describe your peace coming from a little bit of that, or was it something different, or?
I think it's a little both. I think God gave me the ability to have an attitude like that, but he also, he's in control, and I think that knowing that he's in control of what's going to happen in the future has given me peace, because trusting that he's going to control the outcome and it's going to be for good, no matter what happens, is giving me an enormous amount of peace.
So when you had, about a year and a half or two ago, come to a place which you had to be on dialysis, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind?
Well, at first I really, I didn't really think much of it. Like I said, the attitude of it is what it is. But, a couple months of doing it, it just drained me. And it sucked. I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody about it, because, it's not that I don't think people would understand, but at the same time, I don't think they would understand. I would want to open up to people and tell them how it sucked to just wake up in the morning and know that either that day or the next day I had to go back in and do it all over again, and feel sick and drained and no energy. And I don't know, it became worse and worse, and then it became better, because I thought it was something that just took up my life. And then after I got saved, and God, it was something that gave me life versus something that took my life away from me.
Before we go on, you keep talking about being saved. And I remember that time. I remember it was a couple weeks after that, you were laying in a hospital bed, and you're like, yeah, Dad, I got saved. Well, tell me about it. What happened? What brought you up to that place? And
well, you're a pastor, and I grew up.
We weren't supposed to tell anybody that I was a pastor, but now it's out, so that's okay.
So I grew up, I heard all these stories all the time. I knew who Jesus was. It never affected me. And in some foolish way, I feel like I was grandfathered into salvation, like if there is such a thing, which there isn't. And so my whole life, I thought I was saved, or I thought I knew what a Christian was. And through all the series of events of dialysis and the hospital, I moved to Eau Claire, and I went to church in Eau Claire, and a man, he challenged me. He asked me questions that I knew the answer to, but I think God shut me up because I couldn't answer the questions at that time. The words literally wouldn't come out of my mouth. I didn't know what to say. And through the next few days, it ate at me, and I became afraid for the first time in my life of living in eternity without Christ. And I was laying in bed, and I cried out to God, and I begged him to save me. And I didn't think that it was possible because of everything that I've done, how many times I've rejected him in my life. But he did, and it's an amazing thing.
I remember after the Lord had saved me, there were so many blessings, but yet so many regrets, so much newness in my own heart and life. I mean, just the openness of the relationship with the Lord, and the peace that we had, the fullness, and yet I was constantly reminded of the things that I'd done in the past and where I'd gone and tried to make things right. And even now, I look back on it, and I think Paul said it right, we're sinners saved by grace, and we're the chiefest of them, as we see it and we know it. But the Lord is good, and He's good to save, and we rejoice that He can save anyone, no matter how far they've gone. Because you went pretty far, didn't you?
Yep.
And found yourself involved in things that we don't like to talk about, but yet they were there, and the same was true with many. So that was back in April 2014, somewhere right in there.
2014.
And so what happened after that? I mean, here you're on dialysis, you're watching people around you, you're dealing with thoughts of death, dying, and suffering, and hopelessness, and all kinds of things, and all of a sudden you call upon the Lord, and He saves you, and now what? What happened then?
Well, when I got saved, I was living with an amazing woman, Tori. And I became convicted that I was living with her and we were not married. And, we had been together for a while, and the Lord just really convicted me that I needed to do something. And as hard as it was, I had talked to her and I explained it to her, and remarkably she understood, and I didn't think she would, honestly, but she did. And then, I prayed to God about her over every day, that something, He would show me something where I should be with her, because that's what I wanted, and I wanted it to be a godly decision. And, a month later, God saved her too. And I wanted to see that as a sign, but I didn't, and she's just grown so much in the Lord since then, and she's had to put up with a lot. I don't know how God could have been so good to me to give me somebody like that. She is amazing. Anyway, I'm not sure how we got there. But.
I know how you got there, but let's go back on track. With dialysis, all the thoughts you had before, the peace that you thought you had, the thoughts of dealing with your problem, the death, the people around you see older people around you having dialysis, and some are not there anymore, and so did anything change that way? Not that it had to, but I don't even know if I've ever asked you this question, but I mean, what changed in your mind as far as thinking about things? Let me preface that with saying, you've been pretty remarkable in that area of just handling things really well. I mean, a lot of people could complain, and I could count on my hand the times that you've complained. Now, I mean, not that you're perfect. There's things that we could talk about that wouldn't be, but that particular area, that's been a real challenge and a blessing for me. So what were you thinking? What was going on? Were you hiding stuff, or what?
Well, before I got saved, when I was on dialysis, it's almost like I felt I was in a nursing home. I was the youngest person there by 30 or 40 years. And all the nurses I felt were just kind of a hassle. And, to try to explain how things changed in me after I got saved is really just unexplainable and remarkable. And the way I view them now is it's like God has given me an entire new world to witness to people, and be an example for Him. If it wasn't for Him, I never would have met half the people that I have been able to witness to. And I've gotten to talk to the Lord to a couple nurses, and a lot of these people a lot of them I haven't been able to witness to, but because they have seen that I'm different, and they've told me I'm different. And these are people I've barely had a conversation with. And it is crazy that you can see how God can work in a person and not even have to know the person.
That's good. The interesting thing is that most of conversations that we've had, it's more been about the work that God's doing in us. And He's really brought us on a tremendous journey just in the short time that we have. It was, some 2 years ago when we knew that you were going to need a transplant. We'd been hoping and praying that a kidney would come along. Never happened. And of course, there were some that said, we'd be glad to give a kidney, but just nothing ever really happened in that way. And of course, now we look back on it and we say it was just all God. And it still is, and you haven't even had a transplant yet. We're still waiting on that. We have, 10 hours to go or something like that? 12?
Okay.
And so as we think about just all the thoughts that went through our mind and the journey that we took, obviously your journey's been a lot longer, different. In fact, in the beginning, you didn't want me to even be considered to donate a kidney. So why was that? What was going through your mind?
I felt that anyone in my family, I felt I'd already been a burden on them for a long time. And I didn't want to put that pressure on them. And I thought that if I just took it away, then they wouldn't feel the pressure to give me a kidney.
Yeah, I don't know if it took away the pressure as much as, it did in some degree. I remember when you said that I just honored your word and I never gave it a second thought. But then some things changed. After the Lord saved you, and just a lot of things began to change that way. And then, of course, when you had your first nephrectomy, they took out your kidney. When was that? That was
August 2013.
Was it that long ago? All right, so it was a year and a half ago. That kind of changed the mood of a lot of things. And then, of course, over the last 6 months, things have just gotten a lot worse. You've been in the hospital a lot, just dealing with all kinds of things. And just because we know the Lord doesn't mean we're free from suffering, does it?
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a place to go when we suffer, when we don't get what we want. And so at some point in that whole process, I came to you and just asked you the question, why not me? Because at that point I just felt like something needed to be done. And nobody was stepping up, or I shouldn't say nobody, but the Lord wasn't allowing it to happen, and it didn't, but now it was on my mind. And we talked about it, and I remember you talking about some different reasons, about my age and about, taking care of myself and things like that, and you were concerned. And but once we got past that, it was like, okay, let's start this process and see what happens. And of course there were some gracious individuals that were being tested as well, and it just so happens that I got there first, and happened to be the best of the testing subjects, and so that worked well. But what did you think when I've never asked you this either, but what did you think when I said that I wanted to be tested?
First time or the second time?
Well, I don't remember it 2 times, so.
Well, it's like the time when I got saved, where I didn't know what to say. And I think this time God just put the words in my mouth. Because before, I don't think I was ready, and I think God knew that I wasn't ready. I don't think I would have treated what I had with respect or took care of it because of who I was. And I think that God had that timing just perfect. And when you asked the question, the words just came out, and it felt right, And honestly, you're the only person I would want to do it. And I know that now after we talked about it, that you're the only one I would have wanted to do it from the beginning. You know,
You know, we